welcome to What's on the Shelf. I'm your host Jen, and today we're doing our first episode of Before the Box. And today we have our fellow colleagues here. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
We're Matthew and Petya from Green Squirrel Games and Mindpipe, and we make board games.
Yes.
As well as other things.
So, curious, what other things do you produce at this point?
Well, we do a lot of design work, so we do graphic design and illustration, so book covers, children's book illustration, logos, branding, anything visual and creative.
Design that you can think of, really.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. So
we do work and just projects, anything that comes our way that's interesting. We like interesting work, and we go for any project that's slightly out there.
And weird.
Yes, we
Weird's
like
good.
weird a lot.
So, what was your first experience in board games?
I mean, the first board game we properly played was like together was Ankh-Morpork, and that we really loved that game so much that we just sort of started wanting to play and wanting to design more because we're designers. We felt like designing, and so our first project that we made was Carrot and Stick, which we fulfilled last year, and that was really fun.
It was really fun. It was it was an organic process. We didn't set out to make a board game. We were just designers at that point. We weren't doing anything along these lines, and we just one day when we were a little bit down, I suppose, we just thought, wouldn't it be fun if we made a game full of really silly characters that were just fun and cute and you know, a spot of escapism through board games, and we just went from there. It took us a really long time to make it, but I suppose that was mostly because it was a very natural process from idea to slowly moving on to something that could be a real thing.
And it was the first project we've ever done of that scale. The two of us, you know, it was procurement and finding factories and all that sort of stuff was huge.
Yes, as designers, we usually paint a pretty picture and then send it off for somebody else to deal with.
So
that was the first one that had to deal with an awful lot. It was a lot more complicated than we ever thought.
Yeah.
But we did all right. We're very happy with it.
Yes.
So, do you have a different career before getting into board games? You covered that you were doing digital production before, but was there anything drastically changed from the previous career to this career?
I mean, not really.
Really.
We've done odd jobs here and there, you know.
But we've been slowly crawling from one type of artwork to the other.
Yeah.
So we started with animation and three-dimensional design, and I did crafts, I did metalwork, so I made sculptural pieces, exhibition things like that, and just kind of gradually moved on from one type of art to another. So digital came quite early on in our career, and we've done that for a long time.
I've always been more digitally focused in my art, whereas Petya is more sort of classical in her art and design, and
so that's what we're combining now. Matthew paints all the pretty picture, and then I make them real.
So, for newcomers to the industry, what kind of advice would you give to them for breaking in?
Find the people that you can get on with within the community. Find the people that you can relate to and who relate to you, because then you can get a lot of support and just build up these nice friendships of people that you can always reach out to and you can support, and vice versa. That would be my advice. Wireless.
Board game design is a really lovely thing to do, and it's very satisfying, it's very fulfilling, but it is difficult. And you need a lot of patience and a lot of time, and we're never ever afraid of discarding an idea.
Yeah.
sometimes the ideas don't work. Sometimes we come up with something we think is great, and we go through a process of running it past our audience, seeing if it would work, and then we change, we grow, or we discard and move on to something else. So I would say patience and flexibility.
Perfect. So, from your experience, what was the hardest part of your job?
I mean, I think so. For example, from the first game we produced, it was the scale of the project. So we set certainly we had so much artwork that we set ourselves to do. It was purely self-inflicted.
Yes, all our troubles are self-inflicted, really.
And then there was just the scale and the pressure of going, okay, now we've got our funding, now we have to fulfill it, and feeling all our obviously our backers were lovely and they were amazing support, but we felt so responsible now that we had these people waiting for something that wasn't yet physically real. That there was a lot of tense.
To put it, in short, it was inexperience for us. We did something. We jumped with both feet into something we had never done before, and you can read all the information in the world, but until we did it ourselves, we didn't really know exactly what we were getting ourselves into. I do believe every project is different and has different demands, and so ours had its own.
Yep.
And in the end, since we had never mass produced a product, we had never worked with a factory, testing, registering and all that kind of thing of a product, shipping, deliveries, reshipping, fulfillment, it was difficult.
And shipping is always way more expensive than you imagine.
Yep, it
always.
really is.
Wow. So, at the end of the day, what was your favorite moment in your career at this point?
I don't know, I suppose there were several really amazing moments.
Yeah.
When we first got the box, we opened up the box of boxes and got to see our game in the flesh and go, wow, it's real, and it's actually printed the way we hoped, and that was amazing.
Seeing your product made is amazing. It really is. There's nothing quite like it, I don't think, because it is an imaginary thing up until the moment it arrives in something ridiculous like 30 giant boxes because you're doing fulfillment all by yourself. And suddenly your house is filled with the same game. So we have an actual shelfie of Matthew with our game behind him, just our game.
Oh, wow.
But yes, but we do have a string of really fantastic just moments of people liking what we do.
We have
Having people appreciate what you do.
We've had some amazing moments with backers and people who bought the game, afterwards, giving us feedback and saying how they played it with their kids or with their friends and their experience, and that is so nice. Just getting that positive feedback, that really makes us happy.
Well, I've had people play your game that hadn't heard of it before, and some kids too, because I deal with a lot of kids when I do demos and stuff like that. And a particular family was like, so how can we get our pictures done like this for cards so we can custom add them to our game? And I'm like, here's their link and just email them. Maybe they can do something for you.
Yes, that is, doing the custom work has also been really fun. It's just, something that people enjoy so much, and we get a lot of joy out of that as well.
I think it's a weird compulsion of ours to always offer and set ourselves a goal that's a bit more difficult than we really imagine.
Really should be, yeah.
But at the same time, we get so much out of it. Getting people send us pictures and say, "Oh, I want one with my dog," and so on and so forth. And we do all this work, and then we get this really cute picture at the end, and then we get this lovely feedback. And it was difficult, but it was worth it. So.
So what kind of process do you go through when creating a game or trying to get it to the public?
Well, that depends. That depends on whether we're talking about making a large game that's for production, or what we're doing right now, which is our recent madness, our challenge to make 20 free print and play games. They're quite different as processes, but lead to the same place.
Okay, so how about we start with Carrot and Stick? How was the process for that particular one?
The process, a lot of back and forth, a lot of doing the same thing over and over again. We had an idea, and it was literally just a snap of an idea. Wouldn't it be cool if we just had a card game that had lots and lots and lots of faces that people could recognize? And that started growing from there. This one in particular started with idea and then moved on to how to play it. And we basically go through several stages, I suppose. We always start with basic artwork. Our games are really artwork heavy. We're designers, that's what we get the most enjoyment out of, so we do a lot of design. So we would do at least initial designs and basic rules, and we would make a basic prototype, which we would play just the two of us many, many times, trying to figure out any problem we might encounter, length of the game, how exactly it would play, how many players it would, be best played with, so on and so forth. And once we're happy with that kind of thing, we then improve. We improve the artwork, we make a better prototype, and we have an event. And that's one of the funnest parts. We get together in a board game bar, club, cafe thing with about 30 other people. We give them the prototype, and then we watch them. We watch them read the rules, try and figure out how to set up the game, how to play it. They can ask us any questions that they want, and based on what questions they ask us, what they find difficult, we make certain conclusions as to how the game works.
Yeah.
We then, after we've done a couple of those, and we're quite happy with how people we can see test the game, we improve again, take any feedback we think is, appropriate. We improve the game again, artwork, gameplay, make a better prototype. Then we send it off for playtesting by people we don't know, we can't see, just people who like games and want to test them.
It's around that time, maybe slightly earlier, that we start getting involved in the sort of social media aspect. So we start sharing the idea, because we're quite precious with our ideas in that we don't want people to see it until it's ready. We don't think people are going to steal it. We're just very much, no, it's not right. It's not right yet. So we keep hold of it until it's ready, and then we start sharing it and we start getting feedback, and that really helps us refine the look specifically, because obviously if you're on social media posts, people can go, they like the idea, but they don't know how it actually plays. So, really they're focused on commenting, critiquing the look and the presentation and things like that. So a lot of really interesting back and forths with that, and even doing sort of almost dynamic changes to designs based on people's feedback, to see if they liked how we changed it. So that sort of goes in parallel after that point. With
so we would literally upload artwork, get feedback, change it, upload it again, see how people respond to it, and basically get any feedback, any opinion we can, any help we possibly can, and just keep moving on until in the end we're happy enough to run a campaign, hopefully fund, and then go through the very, very long process of producing. There is, of course, before running a campaign, and that's my job, which is unbelievably boring. It's finding out if once it's funded, you've actually funded it enough to be able to make it. That's really important to try and figure out as much information about cost as possible before pricing and running a campaign, because you can end up with a nice funded campaign and nowhere near enough money to produce. So that's really, really important and unbelievably boring.
And do you think a lot of campaigns run into that kind of issue where they
I don't know.
they shortchange themselves?
I think a lot of campaigns, particularly like first campaigns, will end up in a situation where they may struggle to break even. Now, this is just from guesswork. We haven't spoken to anyone specifically who's had that problem, but it's just that big challenge because as I said earlier, we were looking for fulfillment options, and the delivery cost, the shipping cost was so hard for us to manage. Which is why we actually got really lucky and found some really good companies to manage it for us.
We did a lot of the work ourselves, many sleepless nights, but we did well with it in the end. But we knew what we were doing. We knew what we were getting ourselves into, how much work we would have to do. But I did everything I could to find out as much information as I possibly could before running the campaign. Not everything was clear. So afterwards, there are still problems to solve, and that just can't be avoided.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it at a time that shouldn't technically be the hardest part to do because we're much more familiar. So knowing what to do, knowing who to work with, that pressure drops.
We're also really lucky because she's a machine when it comes to research. Because research is the hell out of everything, and it's incredible.
So when it came to Kickstarter, was Kickstarter itself easy to manage? Just getting the campaign up on the page and developing the page itself for your campaign, was it very user-friendly?
Very friendly.
It also helps that we're designers. So when we're looking, okay, we need an asset for this, or we need more of this. So we since we control all the artwork, we can, Petya will tell us what we need, and then we'll put it together. And so, but yeah, it's relatively user friendly.
Yeah, I would say so. It's not difficult to physically make the campaign. Is not a difficult thing. You just need a lot of work around
getting the assets.
In our experience, I'm sure it doesn't run the same way for every single person.
Mm-hmm.
Probably every project is different, and everyone encounters different problems. But there is definitely a lot around there. While Kickstarter is a great platform and it's easy to use, its job is not to get a project funded. Its job is to get a project on the platform, literally. So it was entirely our responsibility to get the project seen and funded.
So when it comes to like a marketing point, Kickstarter they don't do any kind of advertisement for you. There's no kind of packaging for that. It's literally what you get is what you plug into it.
Yeah. I mean,
Kickstarter does a small number of projects that they will push. They will be featured projects, or there is an algorithm that sends certain projects to certain people based on interest, on the kind of campaigns they have backed before, that kind of thing. So as a backer, as someone who is part of the Kickstarter community, you will be receiving adverts, you will be seeing other projects sent by Kickstarter, but that's the tiniest little percentage of projects that are out there. At any given time, there's a minimum of 250 board games alone on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. So it's a competitive environment, and not everybody.
You can't rely on Kickstarter's algorithm to pick you up, even if you've done masses of work beforehand and everything.
It's really great if you do, though.
If they pick you up, then it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, is there anything on one particular project that you've worked on that you would have liked to done differently from the start?
There's so many things we would do differently.
So many things we'd do differently. Yes.
On everything.
I think we can honestly say that as happy as we are with Carrot and Stick, it was difficult to achieve, and we would do many things differently. Not the game itself. The game turned out great, and we're very happy with it. But the process we went to could have been streamlined a lot. We could have done
Yeah.
a lot different. But I think the biggest thing we were talking about that the other day would be a more targeted audience.
Yeah, so build a game that has a more of a focused, audience idea, whereas our game was fun for everyone.
Yeah. And as good as that sounds, it is hard to market.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It's hard to market. Yes, not something we thought about, but now we think about it daily.
So can you go through a normal day in your career? If you're working on a current project, do you go through like a certain like checklist or kind of like a go-to guide for your day to say, I need to get this much done for this much of the project to feel satisfied? Is there any kind of process you do like that throughout a day?
That's the organization we don't possess.
We start every day. We have a breakfast. We have coffee or tea or whatever, and then we chat about what we need to do. I'll usually say, "Is there anything you're waiting on from me? I'm not sure if I've forgotten something." She's the boss. And then we sort of separate for several hours, do a chunk of work. Some days you just got to accept. Some days you don't get much done because things just aren't working out, and you just got to accept it. And some days you do masses.
Yes, our productivity is not necessarily. It's not always connected to number of hours spent, and we are completely incapable of saying that something is done if we don't think it's perfect. So we do start with a day with a discussion and a list and a plan, but there has literally been a day when by the end of the day we're supposed to have finished a certain piece of work of artwork, but in reality we design a new game. That is not uncommon for us.
Literally the other day was like, okay, we're gonna finish this artwork off and get that all settled, and then by the end of the day we hadn't done that, but we had prototyped an entirely new game.
Yep.
So
But all that goes in the bank for later on when it comes the time for that project.
Understood.
So we try to, while trying to push ourselves to complete the jobs we need to complete, we also leave plenty of space for, I suppose, bursts of creativity that come and go. Because the chance of us sitting down and going, we're going to come up with a new game today, are really, really small. So when the idea comes,
everything goes on hold and you focus on that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So how do you go through a lot of playtesters, and from what you've created and the feedback from a game, does that actually change a lot of the core concepts of the game, or would it be only meant for tweaking certain aspects of the game? So as an example, you've put out your prototype, you're having people sit down and play it. Is there particular things that you set for when you're doing a playtest to try and define certain aspects of the game, or are you just looking for an overall reaction from the players?
We start off looking for the reaction.
Yeah.
If people light up, that's what we want. We want people to instantly go, ooh, and that happiness in their face is what we want first.
Yeah. That's we never give a prototype that doesn't have artwork. Our games are not so mechanic heavy as to how to say it?
We don't rely on just mechanic. We want people to get into the game itself, into the concept and the theme and the vibe, and then the mechanics support the game. So the artwork is really important for us, and so we really do rely on that initial response. If people look at a character or if they look at an asset and go, "Ooh, that's really cool," that's what we want first.
Yeah.
And then we start refining others.
However interesting the mechanic might be, we are always looking for artwork reaction as well, because they are the two levels. They are the bit that gets people interested and the bit that keeps people interested. So artwork would get people to pick up the game. Good mechanics would get them to play it again and again and again, and hopefully buy our next one.
So, on average, how long does it take you to get an idea from the concept stage to actually seeing it in a box?
Depends on the type of game. Like, so Carrot and Stick, that was a long.
It was 2.5 years. Carrot and Stick took us 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But again, it changed multiple times during the development process. It changed fundamentally several times. That took a really long time. These days, it would take us anywhere between 1.5 and 2 years still, because in order to see it, if we are working with Kickstarter, in order to see it in a box, we would have to make the game, which would take a minimum of 6 months. We would then have to market it for about 6 months, run a campaign, and then produce it, which takes at least 6 months. So 1.5 years is the bare minimum we would spend on actually from idea to seeing it in the box.
And then that's also not including production time and getting it to backers and that kind of thing as well.
No, it does, yeah.
That does include it? Okay.
Yeah. After a campaign, it depends on what time of year it is. That's also quite important, depending on what country produces it. Different times of year are not great, so there are delays. But it takes up to 6 months to get a game made and delivered to us, and then another month to deliver to backers.
So, when it comes to designing a game, what's more important to you, story or mechanics?
I mean, this has to be a balance. It always has to be a balance. And, you know, we will sometimes have a story. So with a lot of the small games we've been working on recently, there's like a small story, but the story is more like a way of introducing just the concept of the game. And then you have the artwork, which carries you into the mechanic, and then the mechanic is how you play. So it really has to be a balance.
But it has to be a balance. But we always have a story. It can be the tiniest little game, but there has to be a story.
So, is there one in particular that would come over the other one? Like, would you sacrifice story for a mechanic or vice versa?
I don't think
We've
never had to.
We've never had to, really.
We'll tell you when we do.
Yeah. The story, the beauty of the story is that it can, in fact, be twisted to suit any mechanic.
That's true. So,
we'll start with a theme that is hopefully catchy, and that would lead the look. But the story, really, we can twist and turn the story. That's for sure.
So, where do you find your aspirations when it comes to the smaller games that you're currently working on? Since you guys seem to be doing this challenge where you're trying to produce so many games for print and play, where do the ideas come from?
Lots of different sources. I mean, sometimes it will be from playing another game and go, that's quite a cool mechanic, let's see what we can do with that. But then sometimes it's just stuff we see in the real world. So we're working on one that's about bees at the moment. And that was just thinking, well, how can we do a game with bees pollinating, you know, and creating honey and stuff like that. So that was trying to sort of abstract the concept of the production of honey into a board game, that's been really fun.
We do that kind of thing. We take a kind of everyday concept, an everyday thing, usually whilst we're taking a walk, and then we would try and synthesize that complex process into a game mechanic. So whether it's something nature-based, like how nectar and honey are kind of collected and created, to squirrels and their quest to bury and find nuts, that kind of thing. And sometimes we would look at something as simple as knots and crosses, and we would go, isn't that a fun thing to do. I'd like to do something that has that kind of replayability, that kind of portability, for example. So it is really anything and everything that can spark an idea, and then it moves on from there.
You just got to be open to giving it a go and seeing if you can work it out. And yeah.
For the games, for example, ideas come and go. That's for sure. The little games we're doing at the moment, we will be releasing our 10th one soon, but we have at least 40 ideas. So they run alongside each other all of the time, and we work on 5 to 7 games in one go.
We have at least that many in parallel at any one time.
And some of them never. Some of them will they will end up not interesting enough, and we'll leave them. But some of them grow into something a lot bigger that we think might become, a big game when it grows up.
So, do you guys use any type of software in helping you design your games?
Pretty much exclusively Photoshop. So we both have a subscription for Photoshop, and because obviously we also do design professionally for clients, and we use that. So we paint on that. We do layouts. Petya does an amazing job of doing all our layouts for our print and plays, and that's all done with Photoshop.
Both for print, preparing for production, everything we do is on Photoshop. A production company has its sometimes templates if they're very well organized, or they just give you information, and I do all of that on Photoshop. We don't use anything else.
Yeah.
Photoshop and social media. That's all. Yeah.
Makes sense. So, let me see here. I'm just trying to go through some of the questions I hate are for designers. So, when you're a designer, because you guys self-published, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, have you ever been tempted to go to a company to produce at this point? Or have you had the idea of doing that at all? Or do you think you'll continue self-publishing?
We talk about it.
We talk about it. We heard it. We might give it a go soon. It would take a lot of the pressure off.
We've got a number of ideas, and we just need to. I think it really depends on which ones we're most precious about. Which ones do we have a vision of? It has to be this way.
Yes.
And which ones we go, well, this is a really nice game, but I think a publisher will probably be able to get
would
better
be better.
Reach.
They would reach a better audience. They would know their audience better. So it does depend. I think there's a lot of compromises one must be ready to make when working with a publisher, and we are a little stubborn. We might not want to do that, so we will see. But we've never worked with a publisher, so we don't know.
When you first came to Kickstarter, and you were building your audience and everything like that, was there any particular point where it was discouraging and you had to take a moment and step back and go and take a breath and try again, or try to help push media?
So many times.
I mean, I'm sure we make the process look very cool. I'm joking there, but it is really difficult, and it can be very discouraging.
Some example being, sometimes, so Facebook advertising is one of the most accessible forms of advertising for an indie publisher, and you can run an ad one day and do incredibly well and get subscribers and engagement and be really happy, and then you run essentially the same ad a week or two later and it does nothing, like not a sausage, and you're just trying to go, why? It's the same thing, same audience, same everything. So you have to roll with those punches.
Yeah, there are many things to roll with, that's for sure. A lot of things are difficult. A lot of, especially if you are doing small production, then there are many walls. The bigger a project is, the easier it is, in my personal opinion. if a project is big, then companies fight to work with you. They really do. They want to make it. They want to be a part of it. If a project is small, then the pool of people who are happy to work with you shrinks quite quickly. So it becomes more expensive, it becomes more difficult, you have fewer choices, and you do have quite a number of moments when it goes, when you really are wondering if you did the right thing. For example, when your backers start dropping out.
Oh yeah, that's sad. That's
very
sad.
sad.
Oh no.
That was an option. But apparently it was. And we were doing quite well, and we were very happy. And then one day,
it went backwards.
It went backwards quite a bit. Yes, and that was very, very sad. It was a very difficult day. But we went through it, and we funded, and everything was fine. And months later, we found out that on that day, Kickstarter had crashed, and many people had lost their pledges.
Okay. So it wasn't technically on your guys' side. It was just Kickstarter had an issue and everybody had to repledge.
Not all of it, but yes, backers do drop out. I mean, it's natural. They back your game, and then they have a month to see other games they might like better. It is a natural process, so they do come and go, and some people who drop out then come back. But yes, it is something that's very interesting and difficult to watch.
Also seems very stressful.
Yes, it is very stressful.
There were some tense moments, but we survived.
We're okay, and we haven't given up on board games, so, you know.
Exactly. It seems like even after your experience with your first Kickstarter that you're even more in the ready to get more stuff produced, even if it's just print and play right now. But I would love to see a collection of the print and plays as an actual Kickstarter at some point. So another thing I wanted to ask is, what do you think is your ratio of games you've started designing and finished and that will make it to retail at some point versus what you've left on the shelf and haven't touched? Do you have a roundabout ratio of like...
I mean, I think because at the moment it gets a bit. It's again the figure would be thrown off because we're working on so many right now that and there are a number that we're considering possibly trying to do something with down the line. Which we're not sure, but maybe.
Carrot and Stick was the first game we came up with, and we came up with it. We were very stubborn. We did it. We fulfilled it. So that's 100% right there. Since then, we were working on another big game. So we were working on our next campaign when the world went a little pear-shaped. And we felt that it was the time to do something a bit more fun and something a bit more inclusive of just anybody out there who couldn't get out of their house, who couldn't, go and necessarily, buy a game if they had to stay at home, if they were quarantined, locked down, or what have you. So we left the project for the moment, and we started making the print and play games. Frankly, the print and play games are a lot of fun, and we're having a lot of success with them. We've had fantastic feedback, and quite a number of them are very cool and could one day be promising. So our ratio might drop quite a bit very soon.
I suppose, like, if we talk about the ideas we've come up for the print and plays as an example, though, I'd say maybe
well, we've made
50%.
about a quarter.
So we've made about a quarter of what of what we have planned.
Yes, we will make about 50%. So yes, settle for 50-50.
So that's a long way.
Yes, that was a really roundabout way to answer that question.
But it was still interesting because, again, everyone goes through a different process, right? So it's interesting to hear your feedback on how much you've created or tried to create it versus what actually hits the table. So that's about all the questions I have at the moment. Is there anything that you would currently like to discuss that you are coming up with? I know you guys got the print and play project coming along, but do you have any future projects that you can whisper about at this point?
Well, we have a lot of ideas for
We
our
do
print
have a
and
lot of
play.
ideas. We do keep them floating the chest
Yes.
at the moment, where we have a number of our print and play games and the print and plays that are coming up that have some fantastic promise to them. But we've made no decisions, and we're kind of keeping the ideas
But there's
close at the moment.
There's some visually stunning doozies in our collection.
Yes, we do have some interesting things to come, that's for sure.
So is there anywhere we can follow you at? Are you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff?
Yeah, everywhere.
We're everywhere we can be at the same time.
It's best to follow us on Instagram or on Facebook, or you can go to our website and subscribe, and we send the occasional email reminding you that we exist, and announcing any of our recently released print and plays.
Yes, greensquirrelgames.com is our website, and all of the games are uploaded there. They're, at the moment, they are completely free, all available. They have the instructions on how to make them. They're different. It's different art style, different gameplay, mechanics,
Playtimes,
age ranges, number of people, number of players, any kind of versatility we could think of, we've tried to achieve.
I think pretty much everyone can find at least one game that they'd enjoy.
Yeah, I think so. And we've got a lot more to come as well. Some real doozies. We're very excited about our project.
Perfect. So thank you so much for coming in on the show, and we hope to have you again at some point, maybe in the near future, once you have some more things out there and published, or if you guys are exploring into tabletop simulator or Tabletopia. That would be great to see some of your print and plays up there as well for the digital platform. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time at the table. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Lovely seeing you. Bye.